Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the first episode of Into the Necrosphere for 2020, episode number 16. In case these traumatic and trying times without me made you forget, my name is Jackie Smith, and on Into the Necrosphere, we discuss music that would give your elderly relatives and religious family members a frowny face, to put it mildly. Today, I am going to be talking to Sonny King of the band Primal Holocaust. They are a new local unsigned band based out of Northampton here in the UK. They've just put out an EP that's available on, I think, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and pretty much every decent streaming service around. The EP is called Triple-Headed Goat Machine. Sonny reached out to me through the Into the Necrosphere Instagram page, and we got to talking. I realized we had enough in common that it could make for a very interesting conversation, and as you will see, it most certainly did. So I spoke to him about everything from MMA to politics to Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes to all sorts of shit. So that is coming up in just a few moments. Also, at the end of today's episode, stick around for what I'm cranking this week. There is a lot that I'm looking forward to in 2020 as far as cool music is concerned, and I'm going to be talking about two of those things today. My Dying Bride and the new Tombs, both have got singles out. We are going to listen to, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on both. So stick around for that. But in the meantime, the same request that I always have. If you like what I do, if you appreciate the show, and if you want to show some support and show some love, then please like and subscribe on YouTube, comment, share the video, or if you're checking us out on any of the fine podcasting purveyors all over the world, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Google Podcasts, or whatever else, then please do subscribe. And if the spirit moves you to do so, then leave us a 5-star review. But that is it for this intro. On now to my conversation with Sonny King of Primal Holocaust. You mentioned when we were talking on Facebook that you bought yourself a load of podcast equipment as well. You're horning in on my territory, bro.
Yeah, I'm coming for the guns, mate. Yeah. I'm coming for the strap. Well, to be honest, it was more for my own enjoyment of sort of doing vocal covers and things like that. And I'm considering doing a podcast with my daughter as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She's such a cool kid. Both of them are, but she's a good age. She's 8. And it'd be, I don't know, just something cool that you can record and keep for yourselves for the times come in.
And have you got any ideas of what it could be?
So have you ever seen The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an episode where Ralph is learning and he has to put the letters on. So the concept is called Learning with Lily. And it's just we pick a topic and we sit there and we try and find stuff out about it because she often asks me things that I don't know about. So it's just a cool way to sit down together with a laptop, spend an hour with each other, ask some questions, have a bit of fun. But it's all just currently sat in a box, which is why I'm using the iPhone earphone mic situation.
Yeah.
At the minute, yeah.
Well, so my 5-year-old daughter asked me on Friday evening when I picked her up from her mum, as we're driving home, she suddenly comes out with this: "Dad, which part of Mum did I come out of?"
The best part.
You sort of taken aback slightly. I was like, Meadow, you're probably going to have to ask your mother that question. So she's like, "Did I come out of her bum bum?" I was like, just a little to the north. But anyway, no. But I know I could see from Facebook and things like that you're a very devoted dad, mate, like myself. What do your girls feel about Dad's music?
Funnily enough, we were driving back from the shops earlier today, and she's got a friend obviously friends at school and things, but she goes, "One of my friends saw you in your band over the weekend." I was like, "Really?" It's like, yeah. She saw a video of you with your music. I was like, "Oh, okay." What did she say? And she goes, She was confused. I said, well, yeah, that's appropriate, I guess. But to be honest with you, I've always been into this kind of music as well as other sorts of music, so it's more just like background noise to them.
Yeah.
They've sort of said on a few occasions, it's like, oh, you're our dad for the most part, and then you're this big scary person that does all these big horrible noises and things. Like, yeah, but it's all a bit of fun. They kind of get that it's not, anything sinister going on. It's all just music at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, we'll talk about that some more in a second. But I think just for anybody that hasn't heard of Primal Holocaust before, obviously you guys have just brought out your EP now, so I think you're still you still fall under the category of best kept secret. But just introduce the band. Tell me a bit more about how long you guys have been around. And for the layman who are hearing about Primal Holocaust for the first time. What's your style? What kind of music do you make? Typical MTV circa 1983 interview question.
Do you want the full on Danzig Moody interview where I just sort of look off disdainfully?
Well, I know you're a big fan of Danzig, and I want to talk about him later on, but we'll get to that.
So Primal, we started not last year, but sort of the back end of 2017, I think, or maybe it was last year. And basically we met in kind of late October, I think, of 2017. And then we just started jamming together, really. I mean, I have not ever been in a band before Primal. So it was a case of when my kids got a bit older, I started sort of seeing more live music again for the first time in a while. I actually went to see Akakoka in Milton Keynes, and I was like, oh, fuck, I've really missed this. I've really missed like full on metal, and the sort of creative bug got to me, and I was like, I've got to do something. So rolled on a bit of time, met these guys online, and then kind of paired up the five of us. Things worked out. And ever since then, we've been jamming together and making music. And really, it's the release that we put out, which is Triple-Headed Goat Machine, is really our first efforts, our very first rawest sort of material that we created and have ostensibly toured as well. And it's kind of a mix of black metal, thrash metal, death metal. It's nothing too specific. And I think early on, we were perhaps quite hung up on filling a certain genre. But we must have blasts. I mean, that is kind of a rule that we keep still. We must have blasts. But we're not too hung up now on kind of where we sit. We let the music take us where we want it to take us. And we found the more that we've played live, the more fun we've been able to have with the music as well. Because we have such a great time when we're rehearsing together, just shooting the shit, riffs are plenty, that reasonably we're not too concerned really about how people perceive us. It's more the quality and enjoyment of listening to the music, and moreover partying to the music, seeing it live. So that's kind of us. We're from Northampton as well, which is host to plenty of fantastic bands. I mean, do you know Crystala?
No.
Okay, Crystala, they recently opened up the main stage at Bloodstock.
Really?
On the Saturday. Yeah, fantastic band, as well as many others as well. So we're sat in a real pool of talent, and it's inspiring for us, sort of up and coming musicians, if you like, to keep at it and keep writing.
Yeah, I knew you guys were from Northampton, and to anybody who's listening, who's not from the UK, Northampton isn't exactly a massive city. But what I was surprised by, when I look at some of the clips that you guys have posted on Instagram of local shows that you guys are playing, is the crowd seemed to be pretty sizable. I mean, they like some of the crowds that I saw on the videos. I mean, they look like what you might get, at on an average night at a at a show at the Dev or something like that in Camden.
Yeah.
So very very impressed by that. So it seems to kind of have its own sort of cottage scene over there.
Yeah, we're doing it, man. There's lots happening in this town. We've been to places that are perceived as these massive venues for quote unquote local bands, and it's been dead. We've certainly played shows where there's like 7 people in the audience, but Northampton Some of the videos are selective edited. I'll say that definitely. But
There's nothing wrong with creative marketing, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, we get a really good turnout, and that's been most surprising to me. Has been kind of the reception that we've had from people, and the fact that going out there and doing it initially really nervous, considering the caliber of talent that we've got in the town. To kind of relaxing a bit, letting your shoulders down, going out there, just having a good time, and people respond really, really well to that. I mean, I remember our first gig was at this is at this bar called Raffs in Wellingborough, which is a tiny, tiny little place, more or less a living room with a bar in it, and the first one was terribly nerve wracking. And then we played again there, and then our next gig after that was in Derby at this place called the Hairy Dog. And I don't know if you've ever been, but the venue is fucking massive. And you come into this tiny bar, hang a left, and then I mean you could put 500 people in the room. I reckon easy.
It sounds a bit like the Dome in Tufnell Park.
Okay, I can't say I've been.
Yeah. It sounds very similar.
Yeah, but I mean that was like gig 3, and we went in, and I remember hearing the band that were on before us playing, and I went, shit, they can really hear you in this place. Like they can really, really hear you. Lucky for us, we found the fun in it, and we had enough time to just kind of hang out before we went on. We went on and had a good time and met some really good people as a result of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Northampton, we're having plenty of fun in the local venues.
I want to ask you, because I don't know if it's selective editing in the videos, if it's just my eye that's or my perception isn't quite calibrated. How tall are you? Because on the videos, you look like you're a fucking giant, and you kind of have that baritone inflection in your voice that the Big Show has from the WWE. So I'm not going to be surprised if you say like 6'8", 6'9".
I am 8'3". No, I honestly, I'm only about 5'10", 5'11", something like that. I'm not a particularly tall chap. Certainly very wide. Not very tall. Yeah.
As I said, I don't know if it's just the videos, but you look enormous on stage.
Well, I think that's mostly because the stages are quite small. But I'm a big old chap, and generally speaking, when we perform, particularly on a floor show, it's very much like I like to be in amongst the crowd, because that's where I'm most comfortable. Like getting out and being in the thick of it is what I enjoy most when I'm at gigs. Like for me, sort of seeing bands has always been quite a personal thing. I don't see too many bands that I'm not that into, at least before getting into music. So whenever I would go and see a show, I would always make a point of trying to be really in amongst the crowd and get a proper feel for the atmosphere and the music and everything else.
So what has the response been like to the EP so far?
It's been really, really good. We've had a lot of people in sort of Nottingham and Derby especially reacting really well to it, which is great for us, because the scene out there is popping with death metal and black metal. And people seem to be reacting well for it, considering the title of it and the artwork that we've attributed with it as well. And we did our launch show in November alongside Stereo Skull and Masters Cool as well. And again, another brilliant turnout. We sold loads of CDs, and we've been kind of overwhelmed by the fact that people seem to enjoy the music, because you keep it to yourself for such a long time, and then you put stuff out there, and it's just like, oh wow, you're actually going to buy this or listen to it or share it and so on. So yeah, it's been really good. Really, really pleased with how it's gone.
Have you guys started shopping it around to any labels or anything like that?
Not really. It's certainly something that we've spoken about. But we're kind of DIY musicians. We're not expecting masses from the release that we're putting out. We understand it's one of hundreds of thousands of releases that are out there in the ether, and we kind of enjoy the doing it yourself aspect of it all. So we've done everything for this EP. It's been us and our buddy Arthur, who's also in Stereo Skull. From writing to recording to sitting down late at night with him, going through the editing and what have you, and sorting out the artwork, getting it all ready for print. It's all been us that's done it. So we're proud of that. And although it's a lot of work, it's in our hands, which I think is what we're happy about. So we don't feel too much pressure from anyone. Plus, with the sort of plethora of labels that are out there, it's kind of hard to know exactly where you would fit in. So in terms of cornering a market, I suppose you could say we're trying to carve out our own in that way. Like, I'm not a person that I do most of the social media stuff, but I'm never going to send out 1,000 invites to come and like our band. Do you know what I mean? I know that sounds a bit controversial, but we want it to be as organic as possible. We want people to like us for the music and for the live show, and it's resonating well so far. So we're keeping at it.
Yeah, you make a good point around I guess the organic way in which bands become popular or used to become popular versus now. I mean, every so often I'll get a band that follows you on Instagram and then 5 minutes later they unfollow you. It's it's at that staid, boring old way of doing things, and it's kind of like. I know they copped a lot of flack for it back in the day, but I mean, Job for a Cowboy is an example. When they blew up on MySpace, there was still a level of that being organic. People heard that, they started sharing it with their friends, and they, and everybody really, really liked it. And I kind of long for those days. I mean, honestly, I long for the days of tape trading, but that's a different story altogether. I think I think the problem with younger people today is that they don't have to work for anything for what they hear. Yeah. So, like I've spoken about this on other episodes, but in the old days, we had to thumb through a German catalog, try to make sense of what was written in there, and then you order it on a you phone Germany, order the CDs, wait 3 months for it to arrive. Yeah. And literally, you're so excited by the time that it gets there, you'd happily walk an hour to the post office to go pick it up. Yeah. And I think it you attach a level of value to that artwork or that to the music that I don't think that gets done anymore, because now everything is just available immediately. So
yeah, I do see your point. I think I'm 29, so I'm a bit younger than yourself. But I think for me, when I was growing up, there was, I think, between maybe like 10 to 15 years old, I was that that weird kid in school with the big sort of khaki jacket full of CDs and a Walkman, and I would collect as many as I could. And then when the internet really became a thing, it was, let's download as much music as humanly possible. And I think although there is a quick fix in terms of music now, there are still those people out there like yourself, like myself, that get hooked on discovering new music, and they tend to be quite few and far between. So getting recommendations and things like that, it can fall on deaf ears to a lot of people. But there are always those few that are just constantly churning, looking for something new, looking for something that excites them. So hopefully we speak to some of those.
I think that's why I've gotten, or one of the things that's attracted me so much to kind of more underground stuff over the last probably the last decade. I've always been into black metal and death metal anyway, for the vast majority of my life. So but particularly the black metal scene, I feel, even though tape trading and stuff like that's not there anymore, I do feel there's still that sense of discovery. Like I can still go on black metal promotions and never have heard a band before in my entire life, and be thrown some. I mean, Stellar Master Elite is a great example. I'd never heard of them before. They were on on black metal promotions, and I was fucking blown away. Ruins of Everest was the same. I mean, there's countless bands like that. So that kind of excitement, that discovery, is still present for me in black metal. If I feel like it's gone, it's gone from a lot of other music genres. And maybe the death metal guys and the grindcore guys will say, well, you're just not looking in the right places for those bands. But there's just more exciting things going on, and you discover more unique bands, in my opinion, in black metal than you do in most other genres. And the way the scene is, I feel like it's still it still holds some of that old spirit, which I'm a big fan of. What I don't like is I don't like some of the. I mean, there's always been a political influence in some black metal. There was there was Varg, and he's bullshit. And then what I don't like now is a lot of the woke black metal coming in. I'm just
Okay.
I don't want it. I don't want any of that in the music whatsoever. I want just unfettered violence and misanthropy. I know I quote the Goal interview where he was talking about, freedom, and that's what black metal is about. So people can do what they want, but the stuff I find attractive are things like an Al Nathrak. I want to hear something that completely. It's devoid of a message, completely apolitical, but it's still intelligent. It's still very thoughtful, but it just blows your hair off. It's just it's an experience that you can't. There's nothing else like it. It's kind of like it's these sound waves that just wash over you. That's the best way that I can describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, trends will come and go, but fucking aggression is forever, man.
100%.
Like, there's nothing. When I first heard "Forward" by an Al Nathrak, that was, to me, I was just like, thank God. Thank God, you are literally pummeling a machine gun in my head right now.
Well, how fucking cool is it that they used a machine gun reloading as the sample for a song? I mean, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I remember being in upper school when I first heard them, and the album Eschaton had just come out, or Eschaton, however you say it. And my friend that got me into black metal said, listen to this band, they're called Al Nathrak. I was like, what the fuck is that? Being sort of 14, 15. And then I'm trying to think what song it was. I don't know if it was Do Not Speak or Between Shit and Piss. But I remember hearing it going, this is some foul music. This is really like intense, but I like it and it speaks to you. And I think that's kind of, because I think with speaking as someone that's like new to music in terms of performing, I don't consider myself to be a particularly talented vocalist in terms of like range or anything like that. And especially when you hear some of the newer stuff that comes out, you hear people making all sorts of noises with their throat, and you think, how are you doing it with seemingly minimal effort? But then you hear a band like Al Nathrak, and you go, okay, never mind all that. This is what we should be striving for, dinosaur music.
Yeah. Well, that would I think in terms of performance, I think someone like Jason from Akakaka, for me, that to me is that's the sort of thing that gives me goosebumps. Yeah. I mean, I've again, I think I've spoken about this before, but I remember seeing them the first time in 2000. I think it was 2002 or 2003. They opened for Cradle of Filth at the Astoria, and I actually didn't like it. I thought I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, these guys are here in their fucking, white shirts and black trousers. But it was like one of those things where, like, on the surface, I didn't like it, but kind of deep down, I knew this was the shit.
Yeah. And then this is going to get me later.
I would kind of keep going back to it. Like every time a sampler CD came out that had a song, I would listen to it like a couple of times. And then, one day, just on a whim, I was like, I need to buy Corazon. And I as soon as I had that CD, I was like, this is just the band. And Jason, for me, I mean, he's still great, but I've seen nights where he's been on stage that just, to me, is every single thing I love about this music wrapped up into one. And I still tease him about it, but that he once said in the Underworld, the greatest between song banter I've ever heard in my life. He's like, we hear you, London, and when we hear you, he hears you. He's pointing down. And I just thought that is the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen or heard in my life.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, they're again another one of those bands that have kind of been there for me. For me, that sounds a bit lame, doesn't it? They've been there with me.
I get what you mean.
For a long time. Back in the music downloading days, I remember just searching the word Leviathan, because at the time I think I was reading this Satanic Bible and I thought that was the coolest shit to search for. And then finding their song, Leviathan, and be like, oh, this is weird. This is really cool, actually. I kind of like the clean part, and then it goes into this weird sort of demonic thing. And then, again, it sticks with you. And if it speaks to that part of your soul, then that sticks with you forever, Their album, most recent one, Renaissance in Extremis, was like such a bizarre listen. for someone that's listened to them for so long. But I think I really appreciated it because it really, I think, speaks to them as artists that, no, actually, no, we're going to do everything that we want to do on a record. If we want to put a fucking trumpet at the end of a song, we're going to put a trumpet at the end of this song. And it's one of the albums that really has grown on me over the past few years. And I've repeatedly gone back to that and found more and more to it. But contrastly, listening to Go to Mendy's album alongside it, and it's just what a fantastic band. What an absolutely fantastic band. I completely agree. And voices as well.
And a testament to just how awesome UK metal is, you know. And there's a lot of countries that have absolutely phenomenal, you know, fantastic scenes. I mean, the Poland scene is on, you know, second to none. The French black metal scene is fucking amazing. Australia has some absolutely superb bands. You know, the States has you know, killer bands. But I just think I sometimes sort of think it's a good thing in a way that it doesn't get appreciated as much as it should. But you know, if ever the UK has something to be proud of culturally, it's music. I feel like as soon as Pop Idol started, I think that all kind of went out the window. They were, you know, they forgot about the fact that they were the country that birthed Rolling Stones and the Beatles, then Led Zeppelin, then Black Sabbath, Jimi Hendrix, Motorhead, Sex Pistols. You know, then you got Goth, Venom. You got a whole bunch of shit like across the 80s, and then things kind of died down for a little bit, and then you know, early 2000s they. You know, I think the underground just spawned so many cool bands. I mean, actually, much as they did in the you know, mid late 80s as well. Napalm Death, Bolt Thrower, bands like that. But yeah, there's so much to be proud of in the UK metal scene, and I think the UK metal scene right now is absolutely at the most exciting and best it's ever been.
Yeah, definitely, and it's right for someone that's kind of always on the lookout for gigs. You're never short of a stacked bill wherever you go.
Yeah.
And what's really sort of blown me away is the amount of bands that are like making their own material in terms of sort of producing it as well. So much stuff that you see is just being produced in bedrooms or, you know, like makeshift studios and things like that.
Like AV from you mentioned Darby earlier. AV from Abduction.
I
couldn't fucking believe when he said that he recorded the vocals after work over a period of a couple of nights. I was like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with this band called Devastator, that are kind of a sort of like a black and roll type band. And I think, you know, I really enjoyed your EP. It sounds really raw and just fucking badass. They're like, you know, that was recorded in our mate's living room while the World Cup was on. You think, oh, bloody hell, okay, fantastic. But getting back to Abduction, what a fantastic album.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
All Pain Is Penance is, for those that don't know, just one of the most kick-ass black metal albums of last year. And that kind of spawned me to go on and listen to some of the earlier stuff from Abduction as well, which I hadn't heard before. And I just think for a solo project, it's phenomenal. Completely.
I think it's absolutely incredible. And I mean, you know, I've spoken about about Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records many times and some of the bands they're putting out. But, you know, I think Crimson Throne is absolutely fantastic. You know, and then obviously we're talking about Akakoka. You know, I cannot talk enough about how much I love the Antichrist Imperium. You know, that's kind of an Anglo-Australian outfit, but Jesus Christ, I can't wait for their new album. In fact, there's so many cool stuff coming out this year. It's ridiculous. I was kind of tallying up the other day. So this year there's like confirmed Paradise Lost, Antichrist Imperium, Voices, possibly Akakoka, Tombs. I know Inquisition said the other day that they'd finished a new album. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like just like you know, big bands that you know you kind of expect quality from bringing out new stuff, and then you think, you know, for the last couple of years, you know, at least half of my top 10 of every year has been bands I've never heard of before. So Yeah, it's going to be an exciting year. Now that we seem to have narrowly avoided World War III, hopefully there's no disruption there's no more disruption to the flight patterns. But I want to shift gears a little because I know you're an MMA fan as well. So I want to talk MMA, mate, because it's not often that I get to do that with folks on the show. I'm going to start with the most basic of questions. Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone at UFC 246.
I was walking up my stairs earlier thinking, I knew this is going to come up. Go for it.
So your thoughts on that fight? I mean, I fucking love that fight was made. I'm really glad Conor is back. I'm not a Conor nut hugger by any stretch of the imagination, but I like what he brings to fights, and I like what he brings to events. I think it's going to be very cool that people, somebody like Holly Holm is going to be on that card as well, and she's going to, be seen by a very, very big audience. Anthony Pettis will be there. It's a pretty exciting card, all things considered. But yeah, the Cerrone McGregor fight, I think is going to be superb.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, and it's really going to be interesting to see how Cerrone fights this time around. I mean, when Conor kind of goes in as Conor, whatever the situation, he's got nerves of steel. But with Cowboy, we've kind of seen it in the past where he's been kind of stifled by people's emotional tenacity, I suppose you could say, particularly in the Nate Diaz fight, just that constant shit talking.
Yeah.
You could tell broken down a bit. But equally, Conor isn't the biggest of fellas. No. So it'll be really interesting to see if Cerrone can put some of that Matrix level combinations to him. But the fight IQ of Conor is undeniable. Like it really is. He picks apart stiffness better than most people. He just really runs into trouble, I think, when it comes to good grapplers.
Yeah, I think so. So I heard something very interesting from his coach, from John Kavanagh, the other day, and he was saying, people are going to be amazed by Conor's gas tank. He can go 5 rounds, and I thought to myself, I'm not so sure about that. The guy's getting older. He's now going to be fighting with a lot more muscle on his body. He's not fighting at his natural weight class.
Yeah.
For a guy who's always started to gas in the third round, I can't see him going in heavier with more muscle. Not having been in the cage for I think the better part of 2 years, or at least 15 months since he fought Khabib.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, I can't see him not gassing. And Cerrone Cerrone can go. He's got a gas tank that lasts fucking ages. So if I had to make an educated guess on how I think that fight's going to go, I think Conor has a very solid first 2 rounds. Probably has the advantage in the first 2 rounds. Starts to gas in the third round, and I think then Cerrone picks him apart. I think rounds 4 and 5 is all his, and I think it's probably a split decision win for Cerrone. This might age terribly, but that's the most educated guess that I could make.
I think I think I would disagree, but I'm very much fence-sitting on my answer. So I think Conor has the potential to starch him within the first 2 rounds because as good as Cerrone is, and he has been, he's put himself through war after war after war after war, and he's shown that he has got a bit of a chin. Granted, Conor's taken a few wobbles over the years, but after his fight with Mayweather, his cardio had definitely improved into the Khabib fight, and the fact that he lasted as long as he did with Khabib was pretty impressive, because I thought that was just going to be a straight 1 round mauling, to be honest. I thought Khabib was going to get in there and just face plant him like a baby bear.
I thought he was going to murder him. I literally thought it was going to be fight. I thought it was going to be like, can you remember way back when Brock Lesnar fought Heath Herring?
Yes.
And he basically just fucked him up for 3 rounds. Like he wasn't even trying to finish the fight. He just put a hurt in him for 3 rounds. Yeah. I thought that was going to be Khabib and Conor for 5 rounds straight.
Was that the famous lassoing as well?
Yes.
Where Brock Lesnar lassoed him at the end? Yeah. Fantastic. And how absolutely amped were you when Khabib jumped the cage and became the eagle, big flight? How that was just for any fans of any sport, I defy you to find a better moment than that moment in any other sport.
Yeah,
World
no, dude,
Cups,
that was
whatever.
that was fucking insane. I you know, again, how good of a fighter is Khabib that when we talk about him, we go, you know, Conor being one of the best fighters on the planet, you go, yeah, you know, I think he did really well being able to last as long as he did against somebody.
Yeah. Well, when when Khabib was fighting Barboza and he had Barboza in the corner, I mean, Barboza's no joke. You know, he's a deadly striker.
Barboza's an absolute badass. I felt so
Yeah,
sorry for him in that fight though, because
yeah,
you could see when that bell for the third round went, you could see that dude did not want to be in there anymore. It was like, oh
yeah.
fuck,
I mean, I've never seen a look of dismay on someone's face more than that. I
yeah,
mean, when it cut to where he had full side mount and he's
yeah.
holding him down, punching him, and talking to Dana, just saying, "Look, man, come on, I'm coming for Connor. Let's get this
Yeah.
over with." And he's just looking at the camera like, "What have I done with my life? How have I ended up in this spot?" So yeah, it will be really interesting to see how Connor plays out with Cerrone. Who's Holly Holm fighting? I've seen that she's fighting, but not.
She is fighting. I'll tell you now. I think it's Raquel Pennington.
Oh, okay, that'd be a good fight.
Yes, Raquel Pennington. Yeah, that's a great fight.
That's a good fight for Raquel as well because she needs a big win
Yeah.
to keep competing at the level that she's competing at.
I don't think she's going to get it though. I think
No.
I think Holly Holm is like she's such a great fighter. It's just a real shame for her that she is of the same generation as Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
I think were she not, she would have been, you know, she would have gone down as one of the all-time greats. But I think it's just sad for her. She's in the same generation as Amanda. It's sad for all women that are in the same generation as Amanda Nunes because they're never going to experience that greatness. But I mean, I love her as a person, and I think as a fighter, I think she's fantastic. I think it's going to be a tough night at the office for Raquel Pennington.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Amanda Nunes, I'm interested to see who the next Amanda Nunes is because we kind of had the Ronda wave, if you like, and then we all kind of saw it coming with Misha and Holly Holm kind of battling it out back and forth. Which one of my favourite fights of that year actually was the Misha Tate Holly Holm fight.
I fucking love that fight.
She snatched in that choke right at the last minute.
I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I completely agree with you.
Definitely. But then seeing Nunes just steamroll Cyborg was a fight where I just went, I did not see that coming. I thought Cyborg was the only time I've ever seen her be in that much danger was in I think it was a lion fight and she fought a lady called Urena Bash.
That Thai fight that she did.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought she held her own in that fight quite well, you know, all things considered. But yeah, one thing I've realized about I mean, it just seems to prove true about MMA, you know, time and time again. Anytime that you think that I'm 160% convinced that someone is going to be absolutely destroyed in a fight, it is always an upset. It was like that with Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping too.
Yeah.
Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. I can't think of any other examples. I mean, Matt Serra, the first Matt Serra fight against GSP. I can't think of too many others now. But you know, anytime I'm a little just, it's like not just me, but everyone, Rogan, everyone is just a little too confident about if someone's going to do the business. I'm like, there's almost always an upset there. And a friend of mine said the same thing to me one day, and he said he's just literally started betting on any time the odds seem too good to be true, he just bets on the underdog, and he's made a lot of money that way. He made, I think, over $1,000 on the Bisping Rockhold fight. Wow. So he was delighted. Way. So here's I know I mentioned this because here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of putting a little flutter on John Jones, Dominic Reyes.
Oh yeah.
As much as I, in my heart, my soul, I mean, I love John Jones. He's I think, in my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time. I don't think there's anyone that comes close. I just feel like it's almost too certain.
Mate, come on.
I don't know. I don't know.
John Jones is here to eat the dinner of every fighter.
Their
fighters' children, their families. He's here to take everything, but he keeps doing too many drugs.
Yeah, like I said, I completely agree with you. If I had to say, absolutely, what's going to happen, I'd go, he's third, fourth round, he'd be a night. He does exactly the same to him as he's done to everybody else. But then again, like I said, would you have said the same thing about, Bisping taking a fight on 1 week's notice against Luke Rockhold? I mean, Luke Rockhold, up until that point, was a murderer.
Yeah, and the kind of decline of Rockhold since that has been a strange thing to watch. It was kind of like I think Chris Weidman had the same hype, really.
Yeah.
I've tend to found with MMA, you tend to get 3 to 5 runs where a fighter will just be blitzing through people and then they run into a wall. I mean, we've seen it with Cerrone, we've seen it with Joanna and Jacek, Weidman.
I was very sad about Joanna Jacek, mate. I was a big fan of hers. I still am. But the ship has sailed there.
Yeah, it is sad, and I think it's when these people that come from having to really grind a lot to then becoming superstars in their own right very quickly. I mean, if you watch the Notorious documentary on Conor, who's sort of big on job seekers 1 minute to then I've just pocketed 60 grand. You see how fast the rise can be. So it's not so surprising when you see it in other areas, even if the rise isn't as fantastic as Conor. It can definitely take a toll. Andy Ruiz is probably the best example of that. Most recently, you see when he went back against Joshua. You don't know how hard
Christ, man! I mean, how much of a fuck up do you need to be to go in 30 pounds heavier than your already fat weight the first time round?
You know what? If somebody put a few million in my pocket, I think I'd probably have a few more pounds on my already heavy set frame. To be honest,
no, that is fair enough. But I mean, Chael Sonnen, I think, pointed it out once on on one of his podcasts. He's like, the one thing to always remember, he was talking about Daniel Cormier because he's got tremendous respect for him, and he says, like, always remember, Daniel Cormier is out filming UFC Tonight. He's a commentator. He's on all sorts of shows doing all sorts of things, and his opponent he's in the gym training. You can't replace lost training sessions. And when it comes to MMA, like with all professional sports, that are performed at the most elite level, it's a game of inches. It's not yards. So, those 3-4 sessions a week that you miss, that accumulate, extrapolated across 12 weeks. Come fight time, there's only so far your talent's going to take you, unless you're John Jones, and then you can, not train whatsoever, take coke, get drunk, then go into the cage and still fuck up the best fighter on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I was really disappointed when he came back and fought OSP as well, and I thought that was because I root for John for such a long time, and really was like, John's the best, like he's the best out here. He'll come back and he'll defeat these nasty rumours. You could just see the level of interest in fighting OSP was just zero. I'm just going to coast through this, slap this guy about a bit, wait until I get my big DC fight, and go from there. But it happens.
Well, that's the thing, though. So here's what I'm wondering with Dominic Reyes. What if his interest wanes to such a point that a heavy hitter like that catches him off guard? I mean, that happened to Anderson Silva. That's how Chris. I mean, Chris Weidman's good, but I'm very sorry. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I will never speak of Weidman in the same breath as Anderson Silva.
No,
based on body of work, based on raw talent, I feel like Anderson lost that fight because he underestimated Weidman. It absolutely destroyed his confidence. It gave him an injury that I don't think he ever recovered from.
Yeah, that's more than fair. I mean, you only need to look to, and granted, he had 5 days notice when he came back and fought DC, and it was just what a boring fight that was. Just sitting there in the lockdown for 3 rounds, basically, just tangled up. Not really doing
that whole card was boring, with the exception of one fight, which was Brock Lesnar fucking destroying what's his name? What is it? Yeah.
Did you see all the legal fallout that fell that when he tried to sue the UFC for Brock Lesnar being on steroids?
Yeah. Which I also thought was ridiculous. It's like you can't go. You can't go on national television and say, I don't care if he's on steroids. I'm gonna fuck him up anyway. He was on steroids. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I think he from what I was reading recently, he's actually massively in the red now as a result of that, because the UFC are now sort of counter-suing for all the stuff that happened back in the day.
No, but I'm sorry, but you can't run your mouth like that about your employer. And this is something that I've always found frustrating about the fight game. It's I remember when Demetrius Johnson was sobbing and wailing about the fact that he doesn't make as much money as Conor McGregor, and I was like, dude, there is a pie that is baked with each event that takes place that the UFC does. The more money, or the bigger the pie, the more there is to go around. The pies you bake are fucking Greg's vegetarian steak bakes. and what Conor McGregor does is significantly bigger. That is why he's paid more money. Same in pro wrestling. What he was doing is no different to back in the day when Bret Hart was a mid-carder, saying, "Why am I not making as much money as Hulk Hogan? I'm a better wrestler." It's like, well, because Hulk Hogan draws a lot more people than draw you, or than you draw. It's not going to be like no one's going to go. You're not going to get 2 million people buying a Demetrius Johnson pay-per-view. Whereas with Conor McGregor, very, very different. But anyway, the point that I was making was these guys just don't seem to understand the business side of how this works. They bitch and they whine about the UFC. Then they shocked when Dana fires them.
Well, I think it's sometimes easy to forget, because these people are in the public eye so often, that it's still a fucking workplace, and any workplace that you go,
exactly.
You see a lot of these idiots saying
I was about to say, if I went on an interview, man, I fucking hate my boss. I can't stand the sight of them. It's like, I would literally expect the next day to get my ass kicked.
And
then the other thing, when they go on about how much money Dana makes and the UFC so rich, why don't they have the same money? It's like, well, start your own fucking promotion then.
I mean, I do think there are, when you compare it to some organisations, like when you consider the size of the UFC now, and like the NFL, for example. I know the NFL is exponentially bigger than the UFC, but the UFC is catching up in a big way. And the salaries that kind of teams make and so on. There's a lot to be gained in terms of sponsorship and deals. And if you're kind of business minded, or have a well business minded team around you, then you can probably make it work in your favour and put a few zeros on the end of your paycheck. But a lot of the people that get into the fight game aren't from that kind of background. That's why they're in the fight game in the first place, isn't it? Because that's all they've known. So it's a tough one. But I do think the UFC could do more to give a bit more to the people that are performing on the undercard.
I hear what you're saying there. I think it's I think a lot of them do it because the incentive is there that maybe I'll break out and I'll become something.
Yeah.
I'll become a household name, become rich. But I do think I mean, if we're very honest, and I mean no disrespect to fighters, I've trained with fighters. I've done martial arts for most of my life, so I have a tremendous amount of respect for someone who competes at that level. But again, many of those guys are not particularly book smart. Because then they get into they get into it, then they don't understand how the entertainment aspect of it works, and they lose their mind because Colby Covington is saying mean things about people. It's like, guys, do you not understand what he's doing? All of the shit he does literally so that people will get pissed off and they'll see they will want to pay to see him getting beaten up.
And that's still, even for those smart enough to be cotton on to that, that's still such a risky game to play. I mean, you look at Colby that just took that big loss, like all that shit talking. Now you got to look like an idiot for however long.
Well, see, I think he actually came out of that fight pretty good, because I think anybody who would fight with a fucking broken jaw for 2.5 rounds. I mean, they whether I loved or hated them, and I like Colby very much. They would have anybody's respect.
Yeah, definitely. But I think when you translate that to the masses, the casual UFC fan,
the flock,
they're probably I mean, they're big stadiums, is all I'm saying. Not all of them are there.
Oh, dude,
kind of level.
have you ever been to a UFC show?
I can't say I have, to be honest.
Don't ever go. It's a fucking waste of money. It's kind of fun, but you know what the biggest problem is? There is always some fucking idiot that goes there that thinks that just because they're watching the UFC, they're in the UFC.
Yeah.
There was a guy once. I will never forget this. If I can dig up the photo, I'll send it to you, because I took a sneaky photo of him as well. He had on a replica WWE belt. And he had taken a piece of paper and with black marker done the UFC logo and pasted it across the belt. But he was wearing it around his waist like a fashion accessory. And then he had a suit jacket that he must have stolen from his granddad's closet, because it was fucking way too big for him and it looked ancient. And these khaki trousers and these shit shoes and a cane and like a flat cap. And he was standing there like he is stone, or like he is the most stone-hard gangster on the face of the earth.
I think you've just given me some ideas for our next stage show, to be honest with you. Have you ever seen that comedian Judah Friedlander? And he goes out, a world champion hat.
Yeah. He's special on Netflix. Was fucking hysterical.
I've not seen it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but, it's very, very cool. Speaking of hysterical, did you watch the Ricky Gervais Golden Globes monologue?
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank your God and fuck off.
The best thing for me was the thing that he did right at the end, because it didn't get as much attention as the thank you God and fuck off bit, but where he was doing the last award, and he's like so exasperated. He's like, okay, one more, and he's like, all right, this our next presenter was in the Netflix movie Bird Box, about people who survive by pretending they can't see. It's like much like anybody working for Harvey Weinstein.
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
you talk about, okay, so someone like Colby Covington calling Brazil filthy animals, that's ballsy, but Jesus Christ. Ricky Gervais standing up at the Golden Globes and carrying on the way that he did, I think that takes some serious stones. He was brilliant.
That is full on lion's pit territory.
Oh,
and he's held his own brilliantly. And one of the creepy things was I actually watched one of these YouTube compilations of him just going through and roasting people, and he was addressing some people in the crowd, and there in the crowd is that Harvey Weinstein guy. And I just think, like, whoa, that's a really dark relic of time that's just been, sort of thrown in. And you kind of forget with all the madness in the press and stuff about it that he's kind of real, and he was very much at the events and what have you. It's just strange seeing it captured in a time where nobody really knew what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that I think there are some people that have made too big of a fuss of the people that were around him, because I don't necessarily think we don't. I mean, anyone that says they know every skeleton in everybody's closet is talking shit. I think when you're a deviant fuckface like this dude, I think he was doing things behind doors that maybe some folks didn't know about. But I then equally, the rumors that I've heard is that some of it was fairly open and fairly blatant.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult. It's I mean,
Well,
he's
they had the same thing with Louis C.K. as well, didn't they? When all of those stories came out, or
yeah.
stories, they were proven to be true. But
well, everyone says, yeah, well, we just know him that way. He gets on the phone, he jokes.
jokes strange guy. Don't ever ring him. But it has got to be difficult being in a position where you're absolutely going to be blacklisted if you come out and say anything, and that goes for more for the victims than anyone else, but it's nice to know that more light is being shined on those kind of issues now, and hopefully that it will kind of stop some of that behaviour going on all levels, because it does trickle down. But yeah,
I agree, and it has made for a tremendous amount of fucking hysterical comedy, because the last Chappelle specials were complete and utter genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
So were the last Bill Burr specials, even though he didn't go quite as hard in the paint on those folks as Chappelle did, but Jesus Christ, it was merciless. And like I said, I really admired Gervais for what he did there. I thought he was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I laughed at the Guardian headline, though, very predictably. Ricky Gervais's antics took away from some really important messages. It's like
it's interesting though, because all these sort of news articles, the Guardian and even the Sun, I suppose, the recent election blunder, if you like, has really shown how incredibly biased all media outlets are to whoever they're aligned with. And
agree.
It's bizarre to me that anybody pays any attention to any of it. I mean, I've never been much of a newspaper reader or an online article ponderer, but I saw so much propaganda from either side being shared just on Facebook alone over the last few months to do with Labour government, Tory government, XYZ, BBC backing anti-Corbyn behaviour and all this sort of thing. It's amazing to me that anyone places any kind of faith in that, or believes any of it is true.
It's ironic that you mentioned that, because I was having those exact same thoughts myself earlier today. I was watching the fallout of Trump's speech this morning about Iran, and I was looking at how some of the news had responded last night when Iran fired rockets into Iraq, and I was thinking to myself, like, you fucking cretins are actually sitting there probably rubbing your hands together hoping this leads to full scale war, because it's going to boost your ratings. And then I thought to myself, this comment that's been made about the media being, or the press being, the enemy of the people, I don't personally think they're far wrong, because they are, exactly as you just said now. They don't foment any sort of unity. Their entire business model is based on people bickering and being at each other's throats. And what I worry about when it comes to modern Western culture is, I think people need to get their heads around the idea that unless they learn to live with each other peacefully, and they learn to sometimes you just have to say, fair enough, you think what you think. I don't know what they think they're staring down the barrel of, because when you can no longer live with somebody's opinions or differences, I mean, there's only one solution then, as far as conflict is concerned. And we got a taste of that in 1917, and we got a taste of that between 1940 and 1945, and I don't think the world wants to see that again.
No, definitely not. And like you say, it's been one of the most divisive times ever. I mean, something that I'm seeing recently is, if you are in line with such and such a thought, if you don't believe with this, then unfriend me, block me, delete me. I don't want to talk to you. And it's like, at what point are we going to completely lose discourse with each other? And we're just going to fall into these little camps and then make a utopia. I mean, it really, when just before the election happened, I was like, Labour are going to win this 110%, because everyone I know is voting Labour. And then we had this complete Conservative landslide, and I've gone, fuck, my circle is small. For me, I'm not particularly politically minded one way or another. Frankly, I don't trust any of them. I think they're all lying assholes. But the amount of Labour supporters that I was seeing at the time, and I thought, well, clearly everyone thinks this way. And it really goes to show, actually, no, you better get outside and talk to some more people, mate, because clearly that isn't the case. That isn't the vibe of the country.
My view around politics has always been this. I agree with you. I generally don't trust any politicians. I think, I mean, if you talk about the UK, I think most of the political parties, actually not most, all, are completely broken.
Yeah.
But I've always seen it this way. I have positions on various things, and some of my positions, probably sit in more conservative camp. Probably some of my positions are more liberal. I don't think anybody really has, unless you're a fucking nutcase. No one is an extreme to either side. But what I tend to do is I tend to say, okay, these are my positions on all of these different topics, or all of these different these different issues. So, of the parties standing right now, who am I most closely aligned to? And that's who gets my vote.
Yeah.
Because that's how you should vote. You're not. People seem to kind of vote for these cults of personality. It was, you're in the Boris camp, or you're in the Trump camp, or you're in the Corbyn camp. But I mean, those people are an extension of their party. They don't make all the decisions. I mean, we're not fucking ushering in the era of kings here. So it's like who that person is an extension of the policies and the platforms that their party is pushing. So I go with whoever I'm most closely aligned to. I do that knowing I will never be 100% aligned to anybody.
That's fair.
So I kind of think, okay, what's the best possible outcome here? It's kind of best worst case scenario.
And that's a very reasonable way of looking at it. I mean, I've always kind of been a bit more staunch in like, no. But I think when I saw, do you know Alan Moore, that created Watchmen?
Yeah.
So Alan, he's again from Northampton, but
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. He lives not too far from me, I think, actually. But anyway, he wrote a post about being an anarchist for so many years and all this sort of thing. Because every now and then we have to unite against something really, really evil. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote for Labour on this occasion. I thought, bloody hell, mate, if you're getting involved, maybe I should take a look at this point. But yeah, I think more people should be encouraged. I just think when you're like my partner works in a school, for example, and one of the things that she was commenting on was you see the effect that a lot of sort of austerity has on low-income families. Kids coming to school with really meek sort of lunches, not being able to afford this, that, and the other. Man, whoever gets in, we really need to organise our priorities as a country where we're looking after those that do really need it. Because kind of in the middle of the country, we're ticking over. We're not doing brilliantly, but we're getting on. But there's a lot more homeless camps propping up, a lot more kids going to school without resources for a pack up every day. And we could do really with invested in that.
I think I think people would vote very differently if they, in this country, you get if you look at your P60 at the end of every year and you flip it over, there is a breakdown with line items for exactly what your taxes are spent on. And if people started looking at that and understood that the taxes, the old expression of the public coffer, it literally is a pot of money that you and I put money into because we need to be economically productive elsewhere, and we can't be asked to pick up our own trash and clean up our own, own sewers and police our own streets and stuff like that. So when you start thinking about it that way, and then you look at what your money is spent on, I think people would start voting very differently.
Yeah.
So
I understand what you're saying, but I'll be completely frank with you, Jackie. I write songs about goats with 3 heads and 12 tits. So
I was just about to say, I'm probably going to have to end up cutting out most of this shit. So,
I was going to ask you actually. What I know you're quite a horror film fan, and I get slender opportunities to watch horror movies, but I get them in where I can. But do you have a favourite horror movie last year that you enjoyed the most? It doesn't have to be from last year, but what did you enjoy the most horror-wise?
You know what? There wasn't really anything that came out in the last year that blew me away. I quite enjoyed the Pet Sematary remake.
Okay, I've still not seen that.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with that. They did. I loved the original. I like the book. They made a few tweaks to it that I thought made it pretty cool. I did read that there was an alternate ending that was even more grim,
Okay.
which I'm like, fuck, if only they had done that.
Yeah.
but I thought it was cool. I enjoyed It Chapter 2.
Okay.
I thought that was a fun movie. I think I partly enjoyed it because my girlfriend gets really tense in movies. So when she starts shrieking and stuff, I find it hysterical.
Yeah.
They're
proper jumpy movies as well, aren't they? The It movies.
Oh,
That seems
yeah.
to be the one thing that it does is a constant jump scares.
Yeah. The only other horror of note that I watched last year was Midsummer, but I thought that was shit. It's gory and stuff, but there's a lot of gory movies. I thought the movie was just dull. I felt like my fucking chair was sitting on me eventually.
That's the best review I've heard of that. That's been one that's on my list.
And it's a shame because I mean if you watch the top horror movies of all time episode, I loved Hereditary so much, so I was so looking forward to Midsummer, but yeah, it's a gross disappointment.
Did you see the Suspiria remake?
I did. I loved it as well.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking fantastic.
I thought it was really cool.
I've got a nasty habit at the minute of falling asleep halfway through films. That is having kids. But me and my partner watched that, and much like you say, I said, we've got to watch this remake. It's a fantastic adaptation from an older sort of psychedelic horror movie. I think you'll enjoy it. And then I fell asleep before the end. And I woke up about 2:00 in the morning with her just looking at me going, "What the fuck have you made me watch?" Like, what was that? I was like,
oh, dude, okay. the ending of that movie is fucking insane.
I went back and watched it afterwards, but what a killer movie, man.
Yeah.
That and have you seen The Ritual that came out on Netflix as well?
Yes, yeah, I really like that.
That was a killer sort of psychedelic creature feature that I definitely didn't see it ending that way. But certainly, thoroughly enjoyed that.
Anything to do with like backwoods people and hillbillies, I always find freaky. So I love anything like that. Now we'll round it off on this point because I know you're a fan of Danzig. Same. And I'm a big fan of Danzig. I heard something the other day. A guy was talking about this movie that he's made, Verotica, which is based on his comic book series. But apparently, it is such a complete load of shit. It's been compared to The Room. Like it apparently it's horrifically bad. Wow. It's like an anthology of short stories, and one of the stories is a woman is desperate to have sex, but she discovers that she has eyes for nipples.
Fantastic, yes.
So it is truly, truly, truly bad. But a guy described being a Danzig fan the other day as a kind of willful ignorance. You have to have your feet firmly planted on the ground and say, we're giving ourselves to this guy to be entertained.
Yeah.
But we know he's got some very fucking strange jackassish tendencies.
Yeah. Fully. It's got to be like having a son for him to then grow up becoming like one of those white Rastafarians.
God, dude, that'll be so.
This is Jason,
funny.
But we love him. He's all right.
The thing is, I'm such a big Danzig fan. I was a fan of fucking Black Acid Devil, man. I was a fan of. I'm still. I think my favorite Danzig album is Satan's Child. I loved every single thing from Misfits to Samhain to Danzig. Yeah. But again,
the first Danzig song I ever heard was "When We Were Dead," which is off of Circle of Snakes.
Oh, and, great album.
I remember hearing that and I thought, fucking hell, man, this is one of the most evil things I've heard. And it's just a guy sort of dramatically singing about being dead. And from now on in, I was like, I've got to listen to more Danzig. And that was, again, when I was about 13. And just going back through, the first Danzig album with sort of Am I Demon on it, Possession, and then How the Gods Kill, and all the other sort of classic era Danzig stuff. Listening to it now is a little difficult. I mean, the first album is relatively easy to listen to. I think How the Gods Kill, the track itself is a masterpiece, one of the best songs ever written. But then the rest of the album's a little bit tough.
Don't be talking down about Left Hand Black, mate. That is a fucking brilliant song.
How I feel. I mean, it's definitely of a time, and I enjoy it. for what it is. But yeah, no, Danzig's done some really, really fruity material that's aged strangely.
Well, I interviewed him when I was writing for Chronicles of Chaos, and I thought he was fucking brilliant guy. Brilliant dude. Everybody, I remember being at a press day for In Flames, and me, Jonathan Seltzer, who's now with Metal Hammer, he was with Terrorizer at the time. He was there, and a bunch of other guys, and we were talking. And I asked them, because at that time I was still very kind of wide-eyed and exciting getting to meet all these bands. I asked them, who's like the biggest dick you guys have ever interviewed? Fucking unanimously, the room was like, Danzig ate him. Apparently, he stood up in the middle of an interview with Jonathan Seltzer and just walked out of the room.
Oh, wow.
So I was a bit nervous because it was like one of those things of meeting your heroes.
Yeah,
I didn't meet him in person, unfortunately. I spoke to him on the phone, but he was a really cool dude. We ended up talking for over an hour, and then Regain Records, who it was when Circle of Snakes came out, which is why I thought of the story. Regain Records called me up the next day and said he asked them to give me a call to say thank you for the interview. You really enjoyed it. I was like,
fantastic.
fuck, man, that is literally the greatest thing anyone has ever done.
A great one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think he's definitely an eccentric guy, but he's just got very, very firm ideas on how shit should be done. And you can't stray from that. I saw them play. It wasn't last year; it was a year before at the Brixton Academy.
Yeah, they toured an anniversary album, didn't they?
He can still go, mate. Like,
really?
Like for a 63-year-old man, that guy has got some fucking stamina, and his voice sounded superb all night.
Oh, mate, I'd love to see that. I remember seeing the tour come through, and I couldn't go for whatever reason. But certainly, if he does it again, I'll be going, 100%. Well, did you ever see him in Portlandia?
No. I know. Obviously, I've seen the meme of him with a wine.
Yeah.
Not,
it's fantastic. It's so funny because it's something that you would never expect him to do. But yeah, great little show.
Dude, thank you so much for your time. It's been a really fun conversation. We've gone through the gamut of all sorts of shit.
Absolutely.
Stand-up comedy, metal, politics, dancing, MMA. Sorry, just before you go, you're a Michael Venom Page fan as well.
Big star.
So I'll tell you a quick story about him. He debuted on the 13th of February, I think it's the 13th of February, 2012 for UC MMA at the Troxy. I was at that show to watch my friend Ash Grimshaw fight, and I was sitting next to my girlfriend at the time, and this old guy was sitting next to me, and he was by himself, so we got to talking, and the first fight happened, and we were kind of just talking backwards and forwards about what we thought about the fight, and then the second fight came on, and it was Michael Venom Page, and he totally fucked the guy. I mean, same as what he normally does, did his moves, and throws a punch out of nowhere that makes the guy look foolish. And I was saying to the guy, man, this guy is absolutely incredible, so much potential. That was just absolutely amazing. And he was like, yeah, it's my son. I saw a post the other day where he spoke about his dad passing away last year, and I actually sent him a message, and I suspect that based on all the DMs that he gets, a guy putting a fucking Marduk face isn't something he's going to pay attention to. But I did tell him the story. But that old guy was so proud of his son. It was incredible to see.
That's great. I tell you what, you should you do yourself a favor and YouTube Michael Venom Page versus Alfie Davis. And you'll see some really old kickboxing footage. I mean, I used to do a lot of kickboxing and would be kind of on the circuit around the same time that he was. By no means competing in the same division, but there's really cool old sort of like continuous fighting footage that you can find of him and Alfie Davis, who is also now I think he's in Bellator. I think he has actually signed to Bellator as well. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Did you compete?
I competed on a real sort of basic Peterborough Open type basis. I had I think 3 fights, all again like continuous, no full contact fighting or anything like that. But I started training semi-seriously before we had our second kid. Kind of lost loads of weight, started training, and then was going to take a fight. Then we had the baby, and then just kind of dropped it all really. So really short stint, but love martial arts, always have. It's just one of those things that's kind of fell off over time, and now music kind of fills that void.
Yeah, so Ash was a training partner. So he was in the same. He trained out of a lot of different camps, but one part of his camp was always with Team TU, who were a Muay Thai camp out of Gym Box in London. They've gone pretty big now. Phil, who was kind of the main head trainer there, he's turned promoter and he does this thing called MTGP, like Muay Thai Grand Prix. So which is pretty big. It's on UFC Fight Pass and
oh wow.
Michael Pham, who used to train with us, he's now fighting for ONE FC. So they've gone on to do really well for themselves. But I used to train there, and I did interclubs and the odd like fight nights and stuff like that when they do like a club fight night, which was kind of I did 5 fights, won 3, drew 1, lost 1. The one that I lost, mate, and I'll never fucking forget in my life.
Oh yeah, dude. It's. I tell you what. I remember my first fight, and I fought this Polish chap, and I no exaggeration. There's 2 mats. There's one for like continuous, one for points fighting. This guy was going back and forth between both mats, beating the shit out of people. And this dude, I remember going, "Oh, I've got to fight him," and if you're thinking that, you've already lost,
Yeah.
And I sort of set foot on the mat, took about 10 punches to the face before I even realised what was going on, and was just like, this sucks. Because I think when you're in the gym and you're beating up all your friends, it's a game, it's a laugh, But then when you step on the mat with someone that really knows their shit, like, I mean, getting back to saying about how I used to train quite a lot, I trained ferociously for about 9 months, do sort of 5 days a week, kickboxing, sparring mostly. And then I went to a Muay Thai gym in our town centre. Never done Muay Thai before. Got in the ring with this bloke that eventually became sort of K1 champion for the country. Man, this guy annihilated my legs so viciously. I remember coming home and actually crying, being like, "I'm a sham,"
So my one was this guy who I lost against. He did go pro 3 months later, so I take comfort from that fact. But I remember walking into the prep area and I'm starting to wrap my hands up and I'm looking at everybody in the back, and again my girlfriend at the time, who's my ex now, my daughter's mum. She's with me, and I say, I spot this fucking gorilla in the corner of the room, and I'm like, I wonder who the poor loser is. My exact words were, I wonder who the poor loser is who's fighting that guy. And I'm wrapping my hands, and then Phil comes in, and I'm like, hey, Phil, who am I fighting? And he's like, yeah, Sammy. Points over there. I'm like, Jesus Christ, mate. Are you sure about that? And he's like, yeah. It's fine. You guys are the same weight class. I'm like, yeah, but look how fucking big he is.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of sussed him out, and I saw that his legs were pretty thick, so they were like mine. So I thought, okay, he's not going to be massively flexible. I need to protect my legs. We need to protect my body. I need to watch out for the punches to the face. I've got all of this on video. One day, if I've scraped the courage together, I'll send it to you. But we touch gloves, and the fucking second I pull my hand back, the first head kick has already landed.
Oh, no.
And like on the video, you can see I kind of like stagger back, and I sort of have to regain my bearings. I've already semi lost consciousness. And then I didn't do too badly. I kind of just closed it because I don't know. Then immediately I sort of thought, okay, this guy's legs are long. They're fucking terrifying. Yeah. So just close the distance. Just boxed him in, and I outboxed him for 3 rounds. Round 4, he landed a leg kick that was one of the most painful things I've ever felt in my entire life. It was so fucking painful. I just froze, and he just kept on landing them. And you hear the corner yelling, "Jackie, get the fuck out of the corner!" And I'm like, and I walked like Gregory House. I literally had a limp for about 2 weeks after that.
Same as that, mate. I remember the next day looking at my leg and seeing just a black ring where this guy had just been kicking the shit. And I remember, like you say, get to the corner, do this. I remember this guy saying to me, check the kick, you've got to check the kick. And each time I've gone, I'm just going to throw my leg into it and just hope that does something. Because at this point, it's just dead meat, there's nothing going on.
I'd have yelled, pass me a chair. Where's my steel chair at?
Yeah. Get me a knife, man. I got to end this bastard.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for your time. All the best with the band, and hopefully I see you guys in London at some point. But
definitely.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon, and I'm gonna be pimping out this interview like there's no tomorrow if you guys become big.
Great, yeah,
So
absolutely.
one of the first ever interviews.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to selectively edit it as
on.
well. I'm going to say, it is at this point that I realized that he might be a member of the far right.
Yeah, do it. I'm not going to throw up any selective hand signals either to give it away.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, take care, man. Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye. That was K-Death by Primal Holocaust off their new EP, Triple-Headed Goat Machine. I believe it's available on Bandcamp, and I will post the link to that in the description of this video. You can definitely check it out on Spotify, iTunes, and I also believe Tidal, if you do want to give it a listen. And thank you once again to Sonny King for coming on the show. Had such a good time talking to him, and if Primal Holocaust do break it big, then you heard about them on the show first. Anyway, right now it is time for what I'm cranking this week, and the first band I would like to talk about is My Dying Bride. Now, My Dying Bride is a band I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening to this show will know. I've been listening to them as far back as Turn Loose the Swans, which I think possibly predates me learning to shave or needing to start shaving. So they've been around for a while. They have been one of those bands that have consistently put out great record after great record. The last one being 2015's Feel the Misery. They then went quiet for a while, and my understanding is that this was principally due to Aaron Stainthorpe, the vocalist's daughter, being diagnosed with cancer at the age of 5, which, having a daughter of a similar age myself, I cannot imagine what that poor guy went through. I've read a couple of interviews of his since. I know that she had radiotherapy, chemotherapy. She may have had multiple operations to get rid of it. I know that she's all clear now. But again, I can't imagine the level of stress that put on her body in the first instance. But also on him and on his loved ones. So I hope they've pulled through. I hope she's okay. And I will definitely say my immediate impression of this first single that they've released off their forthcoming record is that there's definitely a lot more kind of aggression, a lot more bare, raw emotion on this song than maybe we've heard from My Dying Bride in a while. But the album is called The Ghost of Orion. It is due out on March the 6th through Nuclear Blast. The single is called Your Broken Shore. I love it. I think the production is superb. I think a lot of the My Dying Bride hallmarks, so the sort of harmonic, melodic melancholy that they've been, that's really their trademark, is there. Aaron's death metal vocals are back. His clean singing sounds absolutely superb. The production sounds really thick and heavy. It sounds like it could potentially be an early contender for one of the best albums of 2020. So check this out. The single is called Your Broken Shore. Your Broken Shore by My Dying Bride off their forthcoming record, The Ghost of Orion. It's going to be out on the 6th of March through Nuclear Blast. Definitely one to look out for. Another one to definitely look out for is the new Tombs. They are putting out an EP called Monarchy of Shadows on the 28th of February through Season of Mist. They are no longer with Relapse, who I believe they were signed to previously. They brought out their last album in 2017, The Grand Annihilation, which at the time was one of my absolute favorite records of the year. As a matter of fact, I think it was my number 2 record of that year. So I am really, really psyched about this. I'm going to play the title track off the EP, which they've put out as a single. If you like Tombs, you're going to like this. All the Tombs trademarks are there. And I know that Mike Hill is a real fiend for MMA as well. So Mike, an open invitation to you. If you ever want to come onto Into the Necrosphere and talk fights, you are more than welcome to. This is Tombs with Monarchy of Shadows. That was Monarchy of Shadows by Tombs, and this is the end of my very first episode of 2020. So thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you for watching. I am going to be back next week and making his return to Into the Necrosphere to bask in the glory of having his band's record named my favorite album of 2019 is going to be Marco of Stellar Master Elite. Really, really looking forward to talking to him. And I think he's got a couple of surprises up his sleeve. I know they've just started work on their new record. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. Do tune in. Thank you so much for the support and the love. Hope you guys have a great week from the mean streets of Surbiton on the outskirts of London. I am bidding you a fond farewell.